All right, on my lap here I have a tiny little aquarium, and in it some specimens that I collected during the lunch break from the adjacent marina. And why I did that was that I thought it was a nice segue with the art exhibition work that I've just shown you, as one of my other projects was a combination of citizen science, that is making field observations of nature and public art exhibition, and it involved exploring the nearby waters of the Port River, and in some cases collecting some specimens with a dab net and depositing them at the SA Museum, where scientists in the future can analyse them if they like and check out their genetics and their morphology and learn more about what's living in that river. What I wanted to say was this is the cheapest way anyone can get involved in marine science. Get a $2 dab net from your local pet store, get a $3 aquarium from your local reject shop, and you're away. You've got incredible access here, as Prue's just reminded us. Most of us live near the coast. For $5, you can become an amateur marine scientist or naturalist. So there's really very little holding us back at all, just the time and the effort.
And there's a lot of data to be collected from those specimens as well.
Well, I'm interested in learning from Prue just what's the uptake been like with your fantastic books? And I guess also what's the target reader? What's the age group you're trying to...
Good question.
Influence. Got to get them young, right?
We do have to get them young. So I read this to my 6-year-old who loved it and was engaged. I read it to my 10-year-old and I think she liked it, but then she decided that she wanted to become an author and she went off to write her own story and try to outdo Mum.
Is she writing about the ocean?
Dogs seem to be a theme for her. Maybe the dog might go scuba diving, perhaps. It does have an octopus in the story at some point, so there we go. But I will say, to her credit, she has gone dressed as a scientist today at school, and she's borrowed Mum's lab coat, which is covered in seaweed drawings from myself. So seaweed represents, so I'm pretty excited by that. But I did point out to her that she probably needs to wear a wetsuit to go as Mum, because that's kind of more my lab coat than a typical white coat. So in terms of the age audience, it is primary school focused. But then having said that, I had someone point out to me earlier, because I presented this at a science teachers workshop in Victoria last week, and in that workshop there was primary and secondary teachers present, and the secondary teacher said, no, we will actually use this for our students to come up with creative ideas of how they can communicate about the Great Southern Reef. They might create their own podcast, for example, or they might write their own Twitter or do a TikTok. Apparently that's accepted in the curriculum now, or write their own picture book story, which is quite common. So in terms of reading this story to a younger person, it's probably more primary school, but in terms of the education platform it could have, it can be far wider range into that secondary year level as an example of how to communicate about the ocean. And then in terms of where it's gone and the uptake, I'm not sure. That's probably more of a publisher question, but I have been getting people sending me selfies of the book when they've found it in bookshops, and I do know it's gone up to Darwin that's sort of the furthest I've known in terms of Australia, but then, as I mentioned earlier, up over across to Norway as well, so I was pretty impressed with that distance.
We've got a marina beside us here if you're watching online, and the organisms that I have on my knee here would number at least in the dozens, and it was captured with 3 or 4 swipes of a dob net essentially, and the biodiversity, I'm looking at a dozen or more species of sponges. I've got a shrimp scurrying around on my knee, and ascidians. Some of them are native, some of them are introduced. There's so many science communication related conversations that can be had, or marine science conversations that can be had just by looking and wondering and asking questions.
And I think the scaffolding that each presenter has provided for our educators and teachers in particular who are perhaps joining us virtually today has been amazing. Picture books, live artefacts, design and technology opportunities to design underwater cameras, huge opportunities to integrate marine education and ocean literacy in really meaningful ways. So thank you. Can we perhaps show our appreciation?